Thanks for joining me all this morning on this call. What I wanted to talk about today came up, as you can tell, I'm in a dealership, so real-world stuff here. What came up recently was someone asked me about, why salespeople are so afraid of the customers. And, there's several reasons for it, but what I want to do is talk about the psychology of the salesperson and the customer. And when you are sitting as a manager at a sales desk, or you're an owner or a general manager, you're standing back far enough to be able to see this, but because we see it every day and we're conditioned to it, we don't always really recognize it for what it is. And I ask this question in training all the time of people that I work with, and I ask them, how many customers in 10 don't tell you the truth, at least the whole truth? The average answer I get is 10 out of 10 don't tell you the truth to some level. I think it's 11 because one customer brings a friend to help them out. So if 11 out of 10 people aren't telling you the truth, how does every deal start? To a greater or lesser degree, it starts with something that isn't truthful. And then I ask, how many salespeople in 10 are afraid or have anxiety when they first meet a customer? The answer to that is pretty close to 10. So I have 10 people, to just make the terms a little more brutal but a little more real, I have 10 people out of 10 that are lying at one level or another, and I have almost 10 people out of 10 that are afraid, that have fear and anxiety. What do you think the result is of that communication? It's not good. The result is not good. But what's the process we follow from that point forward? We have questionable information at best, considering those last two facts. 10 out of 10 people are probably not being truthful, and close to 10 out of 10 are afraid or have anxiety. So the result of that communication is probably not accurate, and then we go to the sales manager at the desk and we begin to work a deal. We actually begin to work towards solving a customer's problem, putting that puzzle together. What will it take for them to buy a car today and make sense? And we're starting with information that's not very good. So when I look back in the process, I tried to do some research years ago and examine why I think that happens. Well, it's obvious why a customer doesn't tell you the truth, because they're trying to defend themselves. That makes sense. The reputation we've gotten over all these years, some of which we've earned, some of which is no longer earned, but people still believe it's true, so it's true. People are on their defensive. They rehearse before they come in. As a matter of fact, the average customer probably rehearses a lot more than the average salesperson does. Kind of sad when you think about it. They do this every 3 years, and they prepare more to come in than we prepare to have them come in. But that customer has certain things, a path that they're going to follow, a script, if you will. They want to know what their interest rate is. They want to know what their trade-in is worth. They want to know what they can buy your car for. They want to know if there's special finance programs. They have a game plan when they come in. We don't always have a good game plan, other than to do what they want. And so the common sense part of this process is, if we just stop it, this whole process, our entire thinking about a car sale, it's sales period, and we just examine before they walk in the door, where are they at? Well, they have anxiety. They're rehearsing their game plan. And most of what they've rehearsed is a way to keep you from getting to the real truth, because they're afraid that you're going to use it against them. So the customers no longer come in like they did in the 1970s and early 1980s, and we said, just come on in and see me and bring the title to your trade-in. It just doesn't work that way anymore, and in some respects, our business hasn't changed. We still operate off that same premise that somehow we're just going to have them come in and everything will magically work out. Well, it doesn't. And part of the reason for that is they're being defensive, they're defending. The other part of that reason is what happens when that customer walks through that door. What happens to us as salespeople? Well, I know for me, when I started, I was nervous. I had anxiety because I didn't know what to do. I wasn't equipped. I wasn't trained. I wasn't prepared. I got the old-time good car training. Here's the keyboard. Don't take my ups. Kid, you should quit this business. I get all the positive reinforcement anybody could ever ask for from my fellow salespeople. And when the customer came in, I wasn't prepared, so I was afraid of them. I didn't know what they were going to do. Well, in 1973, that far back, we were probably given a pretty good idea of what happens to a car salesman, especially over a period of time. In 1973, a bank was robbed outside of Stockholm, Sweden. The people were held captive for 6 days. When they were freed, they had psychiatrists, psychologists. They had the best medical care they had available to take care of these hostages because they knew that these hostages would be angry and resentful and be terrified. What they found, and it created a clinical psychology term, Stockholm Syndrome, was that not only were these people not afraid, the majority of them were actually on the side of their captors, defending them. Some of the people that were held captive stayed in touch with their captors in prison for years after the incident. And while we think that on the surface that doesn't make any sense, that's in fact a fact. The longer that someone is held hostage, the more likely they are to start to see things through the eyes of their captors. Because what makes that guy a good guy all of a sudden, someone I can justify, is he's keeping me alive. Well, I want you to think about when a customer walks through the door and a salesperson looks at that customer, especially someone who's been selling for a while, and they're your average to below average salesperson. Why is it that when they come to the desk, they say things that don't make sense? They say things that without a customer they would criticize for being said because they're afraid. They get a lot of anxiety. They're worked up. And when the customer comes in, it's almost as if they reach in their pocket. The customer reaches in the pocket. The salesman takes his wallet out and says, hey, I want you to understand something. It's up to me and me alone if any money goes in this wallet. That's a pretty powerful feeling. I've asked salespeople, thousands of them over the years, do you think about making or losing money during the time when you're working with a customer? I'd say in the mid to high 90 percentile bracket, they all say yes. Isn't that interesting? I'm thinking about what I'm potentially going to lose when I don't have anything to start with. Now, in a group setting, by the way, you won't get that answer from salespeople, but when you sit them down one-on-one, they will almost all tell you that. So I have someone who's not telling the truth, a customer. I have someone who's afraid, a salesman. And in addition to being afraid, they feel like they're a bit of a hostage because that guy coming in the door has the power to make me or break me financially, or at least that's how I see them. So again, it might not be actually true, but because I believe it's true, it is true. So I see the customers having power over me right away. And as an industry, we get frustrated because we want them to be strong. We want them to retain control. Ultimately, what usually ends up happening is instead of asking questions and maintaining control, which is what every sales system teaches us, we end up giving information rapidly and losing control, and we spend the rest of the time we have with the customer chasing that information. How many times have you seen a salesman come to the desk and you say, here's what I want you to do, and you look in their eyes and you can tell they're not going to do it. They're not comfortable with it. And then we still send them out there to do it anyway. They're afraid. They've said something that takes away their ability to use the information you just gave them effectively, but they don't want to admit that to you. So these poor people are trapped in between being a hostage to the customer, trying to work a deal out so that some money goes in that wallet that customer is holding of his, and trying to take the information you're giving them and somehow apply it. Well, never in the history of man has anybody ever been able to surrender completely and defend themselves at the same time. So the salesman can't surrender to you and tell you the pure, unvarnished truth. Here's where I'm at, and it's kind of a mess, and here's how I've gotten here. No, they come up and they want to defend where they're at and justify where they're at, and then we keep moving the deal forward and giving them information, and that's crazy. Every salesperson that comes to you has a story to tell. Most of you can predict with great accuracy what story they're going to tell or what version of the story they're going to tell because they're consistent. the salesperson that always says his customer is in a hurry, as a manager and a leader, you need to help them. Not say every time you come to me you say that, because they're already in the middle of the deal. They're anxiety-ridden. They can't think. They can't learn. You cannot train someone during the course of a period of time where they have a huge anxiety. They have to be relaxed. So don't train them during the deal. Don't just identify the obvious for them. They're going to come to you and say their customer's in a hurry. Be prepared to handle them differently. So the psychology of the customer, the psychology of the salesman, is really where we start to have a breakdown in communication. In other words, it's right at the greeting that we actually start to lose control of accurate, factual information. And math and logic will tell you that. If 10 out of 10 people aren't telling me the truth and virtually 10 out of 10 people are really nervous and have anxiety, what quality of information do you get? Our job is to help these people succeed. Our job is to be the leaders and be patient and have the right mindset. Every one of your people is an individual. And you need to handle them that way at the desk and not process them. People don't respond to that. So the psychology of the salesperson moves into the psychology of the deal. So from here forward, just try and remember that. If you have time, look it up. I think it was August of 1973. Just look up Stockholm Syndrome and read it and think about it. And ask yourself, is it possible that my people suffer from this? Because virtually all the people I talk to in this industry do at one level or another. Ask yourself, how many people in 10 is my sales staff? How many of those men or women have some level of anxiety? If you have 10, you're going to have 1, maybe 2 that don't have a lot of anxiety. They're usually by far your best people. The rest of them have a lot of anxiety. And if you're working deals forward, do you really have all the information you need? Is your salesperson comfortable with where they're at, or do you need to go help them? The proper time for a TO with a customer is the very first time that your instinct tells you that you don't have enough accurate information. That's the right time for a TO. So I really thank you for listening today. Again, the psychology of that salesperson, and more importantly, the psychology of the customer, we've known for years they're defending themselves. What do we do differently? So if you think back through this process and you start at the beginning and evaluate truly what quality of information that you're getting from both of those parties, you'll slow down. You'll help your salespeople become more prepared, because where the confidence comes from is in preparation. Most salespeople aren't prepared. They're walking through the showroom and we say, hey, there's a customer over there, and they turn around and walk out. That customer has been preparing with their husband or wife or significant other the entire ride into your dealership. They have a game plan. Our guy walks out and says, can I help you? Game on. And we're already behind. So I thank you for listening today. Next week we will not be having a call, so I wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and a safe holiday season. And I look forward to talking to you again. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.